Thank you for coming to the October 2013 Corpus Christi Seminar Series. Today we have Dr. Vanessa Olson, who is a forage specialist and assistant professor at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension in Overton. She is a graduate from North Carolina State University and received her master's degree in ruminant nutrition from UGA and her PhD from the same university. She began her career at Overton in 2008, and so she's celebrating 5 years with us this year. Thank you, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone that is out there as well as here at the Corpus Christi Center. Thank you guys for having me so that can be a part of your seminar here today. So my topic or the title of my presentation is Reaching Our Stakeholders, Who, What, When, and How. Like Jamie said, I am a forage extension specialist located at the Overton Research and Extension Center. And so for those of you that are online as well as those of you here at Corpus Christi, I would like to take this opportunity to kind of illustrate to you where I'm actually located, as well as basically somewhat my area, the areas that I tend to cover. They're not necessarily boundaries. They are a little bit wider and broader than they're highlighted here. Just to give you an idea, this yellow county here, that is Rusk County, where the Overton Research and Extension Center is located. This second yellow county is the Brazos County, so College Station location. And I cover, in regards to extension districts, districts 4, 5, and 8. So the counties highlighted in red are districts 4 and 5. The counties highlighted in blue are District 8, and as you know, Dr. Larry Redmond is our state forage specialist who's stationed at College Station, and his territory is highlighted in green. The blue counties in District 8, we do tend to overlap. He oftentimes gets called more on some of those in the southern and western part of that region because he is a little bit closer. And then I do cover quite often some of those eastern counties, those counties on the eastern border. So I primarily work in East Texas, so east of I-35, going all the way up to the Oklahoma border and all the way over to the Louisiana border as well. So fairly large territory. Like I said, I do travel outside of that, so cover a lot of ground. And obviously with extension and research with budget issues, we're often trying to look at ways to transfer our information and our knowledge, our research to our clientele and stakeholders without necessarily having to put a lot of mileage on our wheels. So I'm going to talk to you today about all the different ways that I, as well as other extension specialists, try to take research information as well as other best management practices and carry that information to our clientele throughout the state of Texas, as well as maybe even reaching other states within the United States. So obviously, as an extension specialist, one of my jobs is to support county extension programs. On average, I do about 52 county programs, county level programs. Those programs entail me driving to a county location and giving a presentation or multiple presentations to either a single county or hopefully sometimes those programs consist of multiple counties. Our county agents are it's highly recommended to them that they put together multi-county programs. A lot of our counties can be very small. Producers tend to be willing to travel a certain distance, especially for a quality program, or if they feel it is a quality program. Now, unfortunately, since cost recovery was implemented, I think it's now been 2 years ago, a lot of our county extension agents seem to think that there has been a decrease in attendance. I've seen that in some occasions at various programs, but there may be other factors that influence that attendance, maybe weather related. If it's a pretty day and a producer feels like they can get more field work done that particular day, they may skip that particular meeting. Or if there's other issues, maybe if we're in a drought, sometimes you may see a decrease in attendance because they're either depressed or having issues on their property that they need to handle at that time during an extreme environmental condition. So I cover a lot of different topics in regards to forage species. These are just a few of the select few of the topics that I tend to cover. I'm very flexible, obviously always prepared to provide information or give a program on an emerging issue or an important situation at the current time, or if there's other issues within that particular county, I'll work with the agent to develop a program that will meet the needs of those clientele. Now, our county programs, as well as most of our extension activities, we do evaluate those programs using surveys, a post-survey. So the surveys given to our clientele or the people that attend that program following the program. Now, sometimes they're better at filling those surveys out as opposed to others. This is a regional survey that was developed by myself as well as some other specialists, our regional program director, and our district extension administrator as well. We collectively created these evaluations to use to collect information so we can evaluate these county level programs as well as other programs to determine if we're actually being effective, if we're impacting if we're having an economic impact, if we're increasing their knowledge gained, or if they are actually adopting some of the practices that we're talking to them about, whether it's soil testing, fertilizing, spraying for weeds, other aspects of forage production where it requires a practice or implementing a change in their practices. So as we look at this table here, we have our measures on the far left, knowledge gained, obviously determining with our clientele if we're able to give them knowledge and they're actually able to learn from our program. So we're actually educating them as is our job. So on a knowledge gained question, we'll give them, you know, the measure or the factor that we're determining whether they gained knowledge on. Maybe it's soil fertility. Did you increase your knowledge on soil fertility because of this program? And it's a Likert scale, so they rank from 1 to 4, their knowledge before the program, and then their knowledge of that topic after the program. And then next is an intention to adopt a practice, whether it's soil testing, using herbicides, implementing a new grazing management, various things that they could adopt. And then economic impact. Did this program, this information, can they take it, use it at their location, at their farm or ranch, and actually either increase the amount of money that they bring in or maybe even save some money? Is there an economic impact on them personally and then hopefully in a county and also hopefully statewide within the state of Texas? The last is NPS, which stands for Net Promoter Score. And I'm going to take a few minutes to explain what Net Promoter Score actually is. It is basically a measure of if our clientele are willing, or if they would, basically go to their friends and family and recommend Texas A&M AgriLife Extension as a resource. So they have a scale from 0 to 10, where they're unlikely to recommend Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and 10, very likely to recommend Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. So how we calculate the Net Promoter Scores, you take the promoters, which is a score of 9 or 10, those are considered promoters, and we subtract from the promoters the detractors. We only count the 0 through 6 as detractors. If they score a 7 or 8, they are considered to be passive. Not necessarily a promoter, not necessarily a detractor. They're kind of passive, neutral feeling in regards to that particular program. So obviously the close to 100% is the highest value, or a negative 100% would be the lowest value for NPS. The average across all programs in Texas for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension is a 72% for a Net Promoter Score. So we as extension specialists, or I as an extension specialist, I obviously like to see that NPS score above 72%. Now what's really odd is we can see quite a bit of variability in that Net Promoter Score. We can, on the majority of the evaluation, that person may have indicated that they gained knowledge on all topics, that they intend to adopt practices, and that they even feel like they actually are, will have an economic impact on their production system based on that particular program, but then they will give an NPS score of 3 or 5, very low, ultimately being a detractor. We do think there are open-ended questions as a part of the survey so that they can write down things they did not like, that they liked about our particular program, things they would like to see in the future. Oftentimes, things such as location, the facilities can have a negative impact on that NPS score. If it's too hot, too cold, they don't like the food that's provided, maybe they felt like they had to drive too far, or maybe they couldn't hear the speaker, maybe they sat in the back and there was a microphone that was used. Those things can lead to a bad NPS score. So we do try to monitor these on the agent level, at the county level, as well as specialists. If we are part of a program, we receive the data as well, so we can review how our presentation as a part of that program influenced or impacted those producers within that area. So we try to make changes appropriately. The CP 1 through 5 indicates county program, 5 different events where I spoke on the same topic and looked at the knowledge gained, the average knowledge gained for that program, as well as the average intention to adopt, the percentage of producers that would intend to adopt one or more of the practices listed, and also the percentage of producers at that particular meeting that expected an economic impact based on the information given at that meeting, and then the Net Promoter Score there. So as you look across these county programs, there's quite a bit of variability from location to location. Like I said, there's a lot of different factors that can go into these evaluation scores or the information we get back from evaluations. Obviously, not every producer every time fills out an evaluation form. I know how I oftentimes feel about surveys, but since I've become an extension specialist and I understand the importance of those to improve our quality of programming, I take more time in filling out other evaluations or surveys that I feel like can improve or impact service that I'm receiving or intend to receive in the future. So quite a bit of variability in what we see as effectiveness of county programs. And oftentimes that can depend on the information that that particular producer is looking for at that program. You will have a lot of producers that will come to a CEU program where there's a program giving out continuing education units for a pesticide license, and all of the talks are home and garden type presentations, but they maybe are a beef cattle producer in East Texas. They're not looking for that information, they just want those CEUs. So those producers may give a poor response on evaluation. So unfortunately, there's a lot of variables that go into those evaluation responses, but they do show an impact or effectiveness of our program at that level. Now, another obvious extension way to reach our stakeholders is with publications. This is the Wildlife and Fish Management Calendar by Dr. Billy Higginbotham and others from the Wildlife and Fisheries Department. So this is a joint publication. It is a non-year specific calendar that they have had. It's been out at the AgriLife bookstore for multiple years. It is a publication that has to be purchased. Probably a majority of our publications ultimately end up being free, whether we deliver to a county program or our producers can download them from a particular website. But he actually measured the impact of this particular publication over several years. Had 186 surveys returned of the over 400 that he actually distributed. Of those, 75% of those people were absentee landowners. Now, this is a wildlife calendar, so you have probably a lot of hunters as well as producers that are trying to attract wildlife to their property for aesthetic reasons that will be purchasing this. This is not necessarily a forage publication, but he did collect impact, and I wanted to show the impact our publications can potentially have on our clientele. 52% primarily used their property, their acreage for recreation or for personal use, as opposed to a actual business or commercial use of either selling deer or selling hunts, etc. Most of them were for personal, that 52% were for personal recreation use. Over all of these surveys that were returned, over the 186, there was a mean savings or earnings of over $2,000 each based on practices or information that they received from this calendar. This calendar on every month gives management practices based on that time of year, whether it's for fish and ponds or attracting deer, white-tailed deer to their property. So it gives recommendations based on feeding, fencing, checking for pond weeds, checking your pH in your pond or your lake, etc. So it gives best management practices recommendations on a monthly, seasonal basis to help producers make those at the appropriate time. And then he also collected a Net Promoter Score, an NPS, of 59.3. He felt like this was positive, a positive promoter score for this publication. This publication is very popular. He sells quite a number of these from year to year, and like I said, it's a very popular publication. He also takes this with him oftentimes and gives it out as a door prize. That also helps to bring in clientele, stakeholders, introduce them to a publication that they may have never heard of. It's kind of a form of advertisement or marketing. So another aspect of extension reaching our stakeholders is result demonstrations. Our county extension agents, at least in districts 4, 5, and 8, are required to have at least 2 result demonstrations within their county on a yearly basis. Whether that result demonstration is supposed to be in one of their program area focuses. So in East Texas, where we have a high number of cow-calf producers, a lot of our county agents, one of their major outcome programs is beef and forage. So that falls into my line of territory. So I assist county agents in herbicide evaluations, maybe comparing different herbicides, different chemicals on one particular weed, comparing those during that particular season. I've been working with specialty fertilizer products and doing those within counties as demonstrations to look at the effectiveness of Nutrisphere, which is a urease inhibitor for urea fertilizer as a nitrogen source. Rise Up Smart Grass, which is a product from Valent. It is a growth hormone. It's supposed to increase forage production or growth of ryegrass during the cool winter season. And then we had a county agent who did an evaluation of different annual ryegrass varieties, a cool season annual, highly utilized east of 35, over 2 million acres are planted east of 35 every year for a cool season forage and pastures for our livestock to graze during the wintertime instead of supplementation. So a lot of different result demonstrations are held throughout East Texas in different counties. Not only do they meet the qualifications for county agents to have a result demonstration, but it's also a way to take some science or some information, specific information to our landowners, to our producers in the area. Our producers do really like field days and an ability to get outside to see someone else's property, someone else's management, almost very similar to a hands-on type activity. We all get very tired of sitting in a classroom, as do they, just listening to people talk to them for an hour, 3 hours. It gets kind of mundane sometimes. So they really like these events. So as a part of these result demonstrations, we have field days where producers come to that particular event. You have an extension specialist or a scientist there to talk about what was actually done, how that could be transferred and utilized on their property or at their location. Other aspects of best management practices, things that hopefully a good way to show them the implementation of best management practices that they can take home and practice themselves. So in regards to, say, a herbicide evaluation field day, we talk about proper weed identification as well as the appropriate use of herbicides and other pesticides and various things that are best practice managements that they can carry home as well. We collect a lot of the same information in regards to an evaluation from these field days as well. These are 5 different demonstrations. Obviously, each one of these is very different in regards to the topic at hand for that particular field day. Maybe a herbicide evaluation, a fertilizer evaluation, a variety trial type evaluation as well. I would say probably in comparison to just a county level program, the knowledge gained, intention to adopt, and the Net Promoter Score is on average about the same. Like I said, producers do really enjoy field days. Like I said, it's an opportunity for them to see someone else's management in regards to their forage management, weed management, and various things. So on average there, we have fluctuation in Net Promoter Score from about 52 all the way up to above that 72 at 73 there. So not as high as some of the county programs I showed earlier on Net Promoter, but we're still seeing a positive influence on knowledge gain and hopefully, obviously, some positive impact on the economy in that particular location or for those producers. Next, as a specialist, we are promoted, I guess, supported to have specialist-initiated programs that we as extension specialists put together to either host maybe at a county level or a multi-county level or even very regionally, trying to get as many producers within East Texas, share that information with as many as possible. Since I'm located at Overton, along with an animal scientist, a beef cattle specialist, Dr. Jason Banta, we work together to create a lot of specialist-initiated programs that we host at the Overton Research Extension Center to provide specific topics to producers. Our thought in regards to doing some of these specialist-initiated programs was when producers go to a county program, oftentimes I talk for 45 minutes or an hour about establishing winter pasture. He may talk for 45 minutes to an hour about mineral supplementation for beef cattle. Someone else may talk about fall armyworm grasshopper control. They end up sometimes getting very random or a mixture of presentations. And I'll tell you, it's very hard to fit a lot of information on one topic in 45 minutes. And unfortunately, the longer I've been in extension, the harder it has become for me. There's a lot that goes into establishment of a winter pasture, so it's really hard to cover all of that in 45 minutes and really feel like I'm getting all the information necessary to our producers. So with these specialist-initiated programs, myself and Dr. Banta or other specialists in coordination can cover one topic over an entire day, try to give them all the information we feel is pertinent to that particular topic. So me and Dr. Banta actually have a winter pastures program for East and Central Texas. And we start at the very beginning of cool season forage species that work in East and Central Texas, all the way to appropriate utilization with beef cattle in regards to grazing management, any supplementation, meeting their nutritional needs. So we start from the ground and we basically go all the way through the cattle as well. So very informative. Oftentimes these programs do have an expense. We do charge, not obviously to cover cost recovery, but as well as to cover our expenses. We do include very often a notebook or some sort of printing or a CD with additional information, so they'll actually have something to carry home with them to review once they get home and they kind of start to recollect their thoughts and unwind. So I have some data from what is called the Pasture and Livestock Management Workshop that is hosted at the Overton Center. It was established and initiated before my presence at the Overton Center. It's actually created and developed by Dr. Larry Redmond, our state forage specialist. He left it in the good hands of the research faculty there at Overton, and they continued to carry this program out, and I have joined as well to continue to carry this program. To give you some information about what we call it Pale Man, Pasture and Livestock Management Workshop, we call it Pale Man or Grazing School. It's a 2.5-day program. We try to limit the attendees to 50 or no more than 60 attendees. Obviously, having to feed them and move them around the facilities for 2.5 days can be very difficult as that number grows. Also, by keeping it a small number of attendees, we're able to increase the one-on-one time with research and extension faculty that our producers do not necessarily get whenever they go to a county level meeting. They're oftentimes fighting 50 or more people to try to ask one single question from someone who may need to travel and not have the time. So this is evaluation data that we collected. This is a 3-year average from 2010 to 2013. The average Net Promoter Score was 83%. Remember, the average for most county programs has been about 72%, so very high Net Promoter Score. Average economic impact per producer is almost $5,000, and that is not on a per acre or per head. That is an overall average increase or expected increase based on the information they gleaned from the grazing school. Increase in knowledge, this is average over 8 questions on different topics that they learned or that was given to them as part of that 2.5-day program. Almost 2-unit average increase in knowledge from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. And this is once again a post-survey that we give to them right before they actually leave the center. Intention to adopt practice, 95% intended to use soil analysis to improve nutrient management.
Hello.
78% intended to test hay for quality, TDN or energy, and then crude protein content. Almost 90% intended to use efficient herbicide use as part of their pasture management program. So we've seen a very positive outcome as a part of this program, spending the 2.5 days. We obviously feed them, provide them with material, not only a notebook of our slides from our presentations, but also additional publications in a notebook. Not only is it just classroom time, they do spend half of their time outside with hands-on type environment. This is Dr. Gerald Evers, who's retired researcher from the Overton Center, talking to the producers from Paleman about legume establishment or cool season annual legumes establishment as well as utilization. This program is always at the end of March, so we do most of the time spend talking about cool season forages. They also visit with Dr. Monty Roquette about grazing management, Dr. Ray Smith about ryegrass breeding or ryegrass and legume breeding, as well as Dr. Jason Clear and Dr. Jason Banta on handling livestock, vaccinations, castration, tagging. So a lot of hands-on. They really enjoy that aspect and learn a lot of information. We do have a lot of repeat attendees. There are 3 guys that I think have come to every single grazing school that we've had. They come every year, and they will honestly tell you that every year they learn something new. They pick up something new. Even though we're covering the same information, the same topics, we have incorporated a wildlife aspect with Dr. Billy Higginbotham, since wildlife is of an interest for a lot of people in East Texas. We have had people come from as far away as Alaska, California to attend our program, and they'll even travel far from within the state, from Houston and other areas to attend this particular program. So it's well attended, a lot of repeat attendees, so a very good, somewhat specialist research initiated type program where we have good feedback and good attendance. Now, another method of reaching our stakeholders is obviously with webinars or distance learning. I've participated in several webinars, contributing a presentation. I've yet to develop my own webinar or do a webinar with other specialists. This is actually one I contributed. I was invited to speak for Mississippi State University. They have a Ag at Lunch through the Animal and Dairy Science Department, a Learn at Lunch series. I think it's once a month they have this particular webinar, and I participated. They do a survey, which actually you can do as part of the webinar, so electronically, not having, at that moment, the producer sitting at home can rate that particular program. So it's almost like a poll. There on the far left, that question says, please rate today's speaker, where 1 is poor and 5 is excellent. And this is the poll for me being the speaker, so 91.6% selected 5, that I was an excellent speaker. And then on the far right at the top, it says, did you enjoy the format of today's program by basically attending by webinar? 100% said yes. On the left, bottom left, please rate today's topic, where 1 equals poor and 5 is excellent. 64.2% selected excellent. Only 1 person selected poor. It may be information that they did not necessarily need. It may not have applied to them directly. And then on the far right, will the information presented be useful in your operation? And 100% said yes. I think webinars are becoming very popular. I know that there is a webinar that the wildlife group puts together and has that webinar once a month. I've participated in that as well. It's very popular. They do have high attendance. This one, I think there were a total of 12 people that signed in on that particular day. Obviously, you're going to have some fluctuation in those numbers from month to month. They may only attend topics that are important to them or that apply to their production system or what they're trying to achieve, or they may see a speaker that they know, that they've heard before. I am obviously from out of state. They may not have known who I was and avoided the particular day that I was speaking, not knowing if I was a good speaker or not, and should they spend the time and pay the money to attend that webinar. In my experience, even doing webinars remotely, I've done several from my office where I'm speaking to multiple counties where the producers are sitting in an auditorium or a classroom or an office at their county, reaching multiple counties, hundreds of people at one time. So far has been positive feedback from producers in regards to that method. Now obviously we all like that face-to-face contact. Oftentimes they feel limited in regards to asking questions with this form of this system or this type of system. We did offer them an opportunity about 10 to 15 minutes to ask questions. I received, I think, 3 questions total within that time. I think a lot more of us as specialists with, restrictions on travel or time, trying to cover a large distance, are doing a lot more webinars or distant learning type situations where we can hopefully take 1 hour presentation and spread it to a larger number of people than by just going to a single county. So that is a method that a lot of us are implementing at this point. Another one's very popular for research as well as extension are websites, the use of websites to spread information. Most of our producers have access to the internet, whether they're going to the public library and logging on, or via their phone in the palm of their hand, or a computer at their desk. This is my website along with Dr. Larry Redmond. It's foragefax.tamu.edu. It is actually what's called an RSS feed. I like this, and this aspect of an RSS feed is that someone can subscribe or enter their email, subscribe to this website, and every time I post new information or Larry posts new information, the producer or whoever has subscribed receives an email with that new post or that new information. So instead of the producer having to check on a daily basis or weekly basis to see if anything's been updated, they get notification that there's new information or that there's a new post. Very similar to what AgriLife Communications does with AgriLife Today. You can subscribe to AgriLife Today, and every time there's a new story on AgriLife Today about something, a new research story or a new extension program, you receive that in an email on a daily basis. So it's a great way, great tools, and I'll actually show you some data that's been collected through Google Analytics, which is free for me. I get this information on monthly, and I collected, it gives me a lot more information than I'm going to show you here, but the blue bar is for visits, and I'll define these in a second. The red bar is unique visits, and the green is page views. A visit is anytime someone goes to that website. So if Dr. Landivar goes back to his desk after the seminar and goes to ForageFax, that counts as a visit. If he goes to, maybe if he switches from there and goes to the Corpus Christi website but then comes back to the ForageFax website, it still counts that he's now visited the website twice. So it counts it as an additional visit. Now the difference between that and unique visits is that would only count as one unique visit. He's never been to ForageFax. His computer, that particular computer, has never been to ForageFax before. So that first visit counts as a unique visit. That second visit is only counted as a visit, not as a unique visit. So a unique visit is basically, I would consider a unique visit as a new clientele, a new person coming to my website. Page views is obviously the number of times that page or a page is viewed. So when Dr. Landivar goes to the ForageFax website, whenever he first gets back to his office and he looks at several different pages, those count as page views. And then if maybe he goes and gets a snack or a drink out of the soda machine, He's gone several minutes and comes back and changes the page again. That's another page view. So those are not new or unique page views. So you can see from January, where our site was launched and created in January, you can see some fluctuation all the way to most recently in September, with a spike or an increase in April compared to some other months. April, I was probably more methodical about actually posting information on a regular basis. That is one thing that hopefully this illustrates to us, and it definitely illustrates to me in regards to websites. Adding new information, keeping those updated is very important to maintain that attention or that attention level. I can tell when it shows me day by day within that month the number of visits. Whenever the day I post new information, there is a spike in people or in clientele that view that particular page or view that website. So it's very important for us to update and add additional information to our website. My goal is to add or have a post at least weekly, if not more. I am trying to do a weed of the week to entice producers, to educate producers on weed identification, helping them with weed identification for their pastures and hay meadows. We obviously put other important information in regards to drought or extreme environmental conditions or issues within forage production. So once again, it's important for those updates and additions. Now, another aspect that is becoming a question for a lot of us, not only in research but also in extension, we spend a lot of time talking about social media. Where do we fit as researchers and specialists within social media? So I have some data as well as some information for these various social media things or avenues. I'm going to hopefully introduce you to, my pointer's not working. Obviously, we're all aware of YouTube, which is a website where you can post videos of various lengths. The N on the far left of your screen, the IN, is for LinkedIn. It's supposed to be more of like a networking site for professionals where you can find other professionals in your area of interest or maybe even in other areas of interest. We're all familiar with Facebook, whether we're on Facebook or we have children or grandchildren who are active on Facebook. The far right, the little bird in the comment box, is Twitter. Very popular. Twitter has increased in popularity over the past couple of years, as we will see. The camera in the right corner is Instagram, basically a photo sharing site. They have most recently implemented or given the ability for Instagram users to post about a 15-second video, a very short video, obviously much shorter than compared to what something you could post on YouTube. Google Plus is a way to network, to locate your friends or other business colleagues, associates, to share information, to share pictures, other type things. Pinterest, which is more of a, once again, a sharing of ideas and information. Majority of Pinterest users are women, and most of those women, one of those, use those for decorating or more personal things such as decorating or recipes, those types of things. It basically becomes an idea board, somewhere where we can post our ideas or our interests and go back to those and have those saved. So we can always find that recipe for that chocolate cake we've been wanting to make. So, but majority users, like I said, are women, are female. So when we start thinking about social media, we have to think about our clientele, their age, and other factors. This is a YouTube page for Georgia Forages, the University of Georgia. Their forage specialist, state forage specialist, Dr. Dennis Hancock, who I know from my previous receiving my degrees at the University of Georgia. And in regards to use of social media, he is probably the best at using social media to reach his clientele. This is his YouTube page, where he posts different videos, as you can see, on forage systems for goats and their various parts. There's one on harvesting drought-stressed corn for forages. There's others that talk about specific recommendations. They may just be him talking in his office. They may include slides, or they may strictly be slides. The harvesting drought-stressed corn for forage was one that was videoed while he was actually in part of a field day. So you can kill multiple birds with one stone, provide a program on site in person, and then record it and save it for viewers later who weren't able to attend that program. Now, for his YouTube page, he only has 36 followers. Only 36 people follow him. That means they have logged in, they have an account with YouTube, which is free. They have saved that, or they have saved this Georgia Forages link, so they can go back and view videos at various times. Now, if you look at the views for those various presentations, the Harvesting Drought-Stressed Corn for Forage, it was 2 years ago, but almost has 2,000 views. Some of the others only have 100 or maybe less number of views. I haven't talked to Dennis about his YouTube page. I don't know how effective he feels or how effective this works in reaching his clientele. I think it's a great tool. He also has a Georgia Forages Facebook page where he only has a little more than 300 likes, or people that like the Georgia Forages page so they can receive updates or go back and see information. So we really have to think about those people, or the age of the people that are actually using social media. We have to think about our clientele. When I go to a county program, the average age of my clientele is above 60 years of age. So it's an older group. Very often, a lot of those people are probably not involved or using social media, maybe as of yet. They may start to use social media as that becomes a bigger route for companies as well as services to reach them with information and advertisements. This is some research that I found from the Pew Research Center Institute and American Life Project. They do a lot of research in regards to social media, looking at various factors, and this is the social networking site use by age group. So those networking sites include LinkedIn, Facebook, maybe even Google+, those social media type locations. The dark blue or the navy color is all internet users, no matter what their age, but across all internet users. The red line is 18 to 29 years of age. The green line is 30 to 49. The lighter blue, or Carolina blue, is 50 to 64 years of age, and then the gray or silver line is 65 plus years of age. So as you can see, this is from February of 2005 to May of 2013, so this year. You can see there's been an increase in social media networking usage for all internet users as well as every age group from 2005 to 2013. One, they are more popular. They have increased in popularity. We now have the ability to access a lot of these social media sites from our phone if we have a smartphone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone or an HTC, whatever type of smartphone that we have. A lot of these can be accessed from that, from our hand when we're at home or in the grocery store. So as you can see, if we just look at the 65 plus, that very bottom line, in August of 2006, only 1% were using social media of those that were surveyed. And then once we get into May 13, we've gone almost doubled, well over doubled. We're at 43% of those users are 65 or years older. So they have seen an increase of older generations, 65 plus or even 60 plus, and increasing their social media usage. Now, my mother is over 65. She is on Facebook, but the only reason she's on Facebook is probably just to follow me, to see what I'm doing, to stay in touch with me as her daughter, who's very far away. She's in North Carolina. I'm in Texas. It's a great way to stay in touch with friends and family when you're far away. She's not on there looking for information from resources. She's one of those people, she definitely does not believe everything she reads on the internet. She's highly skeptical, being from an older generation. You know, she remembers when her first computer and when the internet started. She's always been skeptical. She's also a librarian, so she believes in paper and books a lot more than she does the internet or computers. So there's going to be a lot of perspective in regards to some of these. A lot of the older older generations that are starting to use social media are probably using it to see pictures of grandchildren that may live far away, or just so that they can brag about their grandchildren to other friends or other people that are out there on social media. Twitter, this is looking at Twitter strictly, taking out Facebook and any other social media, only looking at Twitter. The same colors, once again, that silver line at the bottom is that 65 or plus. So in 3 years, from November 2010 to May 2013, the increase of users over the age of 65 on Twitter has only increased by 1%. So very slow, but still an increase. What's going to happen over time? No one knows. I'm not on Twitter. Twitter is definitely a form of social media. If we were to use as extension specialists or as researchers, you would have to be constantly changing that information. Twitter is basically just a status update. It's a few sentences. You're limited on the number of words that you can type at a time. I think you can post pictures along with that message or the couple of sentences. So it's a short blurb of information. But people that are on Twitter, they're checking it constantly, looking for status update, short blurb of information, a hot topic, whether it's something to do with celebrities or a sports team, or even if it's something to do with extension or research. So it's something that would have to be very active, highly involved, would require a lot of our time, or a technician or a support staff's time, which obviously can be very time-consuming when there's other activities that are maybe more important or more valued. But there has been an increase, especially in 18 to 29-year-olds, on the use of Twitter. Obviously, our younger generations, or the younger people in college and high school, they're very in tune to a lot of this social media. Our speaker at our project unit group was talking about social media and how we could potentially use it. And he actually said a lot of the younger generations are leaning away from Facebook because their parents are on Facebook or their grandparents are on Facebook. And obviously teenagers and young adults don't necessarily want their parents to know what they're doing, you know, with their extra time or their parents' money sometimes. So they're starting to lean away from Facebook because there is an increase in the older generation using Facebook or other sources of social media. Now, something else that's new and probably present on a lot of our minds is mobile device apps, whether it's for our iPhone, an Android, or even an iPad or some sort of tablet. These apps are becoming popular. This is, I'll be happy to share with you, there's a website from Oklahoma State that Dr. David Bonsberger, our department head, shared with us, where a guy from OSU actually kind of reviewed. He downloaded a lot of these agricultural applied applications onto his iPad or his phone and did some, gave basically kind of a review. These are the apps that I've downloaded. I use this one more than this one. I can see where this one is more applicable to a different type of producer. So there are a lot out there. Some are free. They can be time-consuming and expensive to create, or at least from what I have heard or seen. But once again, it's going to depend on, do our producers have smartphones? Are they using smartphones when they're out in the field, when they're on the tractor or on their horse? Do they have access to, are they actually going to use this type of information or this accessibility of information? I think in time it probably will increase in popularity. Some of these are free, some of them have an expense. I'll tell you, as a personal iPhone user, I have yet to pay for an app that I've downloaded. Even though I'll pay to download a song from iTunes, for some reason it's hard for me to pay $1.99 for an app. It has to be something that I think that I would really use frequently and would apply to kind of an everyday type situation. So if creating or producing apps are a way that we can reach our clientele, I did read in some research, there's still a lot of people out there, Americans out there, that do not own a smartphone, that still own a very simple flip phone or, phone that doesn't have internet access or have the ability to actually have applications. My parents still use flip phones or slide phones. They could potentially access the internet, but they refuse to because it's an additional charge. Dr. Billy Higginbotham, I'll tell on him, our wildlife specialist at Overton, refuses to buy a smartphone. He has the most basic flip phone that he could possibly purchase that they would actually sell him. He would be perfectly fine if all it did was to have incoming and outgoing calls. We kind of give him a hard time about that, but it meets his need. He doesn't feel like he has a need or doesn't want that additional. So there's still people out there that have not joined the smartphone band. So we have to keep that in mind as well, that there may be producers out there that do not or have not yet joined the smartphone generation. Those applications are a way, obviously, to generate some funds by selling that particular application, but obviously I feel like it needs to be an app that is worth it, that provides significant information for our producers. And I feel like as extension specialists and researchers, we do have information that we can actually ask a price for. It is highly valuable. We probably do not value it enough very often in the way we present our information or share our information. So overall, the question in regards to apps, will people use apps? This is information from Portio Research in March 2013. It says 1.2 billion people worldwide were using mobile apps at the end of 2012. That's just overall any type of smartphone mobile device application, whether it's iTunes or a mapping or maybe even a weed identification app, any app. Forecast to grow at almost 30% each year to reach 4.4 billion users by the end of 2017. So they're predicting that will be based on previous growth, that by 2017 we could be reaching that many people with apps that we create or produce or provide for those end users. But once again, in agriculture, research and extension, we do have to keep in mind those end users has to be user friendly, obviously easy for them to manipulate, and obviously provide the information that they need. So overall, in regards to everything that I've talked about today, whether it's county level programming, specialist initiated programming, websites and extension publications, or social media. The question, of course, for all of us is, what is the best method, or is there one best method or better method to reach our clientele over any others? It's really, I think it's a very challenging question. I think it's almost an unanswerable question because in extension, as we say very often, it depends. It really depends on our stakeholders and clientele, who we are trying to reach and share this information with. What is the age? What are the needs of our clientele? I will tell you that producers still like picking up publications at a county program meeting, or they like to have things in printed in their hands. Even if you give them a CD or a USB drive with information, they still like to feel that paper between their hands. Now, whether they use it when they go home or if it finds itself in the floor bed of the truck picking up mud, it's really hard to say. So I think all methods of reaching our clientele are very important and will continue to be important. I do not necessarily see county programs depleting or going away, or even the need for written paper publications. Whether they're downloading themselves at home and then printing them off, they do like to have something to hold in their hands. But there's several ways that we can reach our clientele. Maybe as there's a generation turnover. We may spend more of our time on social media providing that information to that clientele that uses social media, or that clientele that has the smartphones or the ability to download and utilize applications for mobile devices. So we have to kind of be a jack of all trades, and ability to try to reach as many of our stakeholders as possibly can in methods that reach the most people that we possibly can. So with that, that's the conclusion of my presentation. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions that any of you guys might have.